Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, mystery review episode 44. Gotta say, it's only going to get better from here. So, yeah, it seems that I've been doing this now, the mystery reviews, for a little over a year. So, awesome. I also want to say, before we get too far into this, that I am still on goal to reach 1,000 subscribers before June 1st. If you help me to do so, share my content out, share my videos, share the links to my channel and all that. And if I end up getting to 1,000 subscribers before June, I will dye my beard orange. I will dye my hair orange. I will even dye my freaking eyebrows orange. And then I will do a live stream that allows everybody to clip, screenshot, roast. I'll even do the giveaway for the Batman poster, theater poster for the Robert Pattinson Batman movie. It is a poster of a close-up to his eye. And yeah, it's going to be a fun time. I'll invite people on and all that stuff. So without further ado, let's get into the mystery review. So this mystery review is of a movie that is one that I thought was very good. First off, I do want to say that. The hints that were given were time travel and Nightingale. And the bonus, I believe, was... What was the bonus? I forget what the bonus was. Anyway. Yeah, the bonus, I believe... I forget what the bonus was. Anyway, the final hint that I gave on Twitter was, I believe it was a quote. I'm forgetting, folks. I'm forgetful today. But anyway, one person I do believe did guess it right, and it was Frequency, the movie. So this movie is from 2000, and it's a time travel movie that's not really a time travel movie. It's an interesting tale of conversing through time to each other. It was made in 1999, I believe, released in 2000. There's conflicting information, so I'm actually going to look it up right now. What year did Frequency come out? April 28th, 2000. Now, the movie takes place in 1969 and 1999. So, yes, they're saying April 28th, 2000. So, we'll go with 2000. Now, it's a time travel movie that was made that didn't involve actually traveling through time, but carrying the consequences of changing the past by changing or by somehow influencing the past from the present. Frequency was directed by Gregory Hoblit, starring Dennis Quaid, Jim Caviezel, Andre Brower, Elizabeth Mitchell, Sean Doyle, and a few others that are interesting characters. This movie was a decent movie. I enjoyed it when I saw it for the first time. I was 15, and I still enjoyed watching it throughout the years. Last time I actually watched this movie was before getting ready for the stream was actually, I think it was about 7 years ago, around 2015. Yeah, I think so. Around sometime in 2015, I believe I watched Frequency again, and I still enjoyed it. So actually, I'm going to do something that I haven't done before with the mystery reviews. I'm actually going to play the trailer for this. Hopefully, I do not get copyright struck. I do want to clarify right now and I'll change the data or the explanation of the video or the description later that I do not own any of the stuff that I show you guys on here. So this trailer, I do not own the rights to it. I am simply doing it under fair use to promote and discuss this movie. So yes, without further ado, let's share the screen. Chrome tab. Definitely not those. Yes, there it is. So yes, I'll even start at 9 seconds ahead so it doesn't show the whole thing. Now, here we go.
Once in a decade, massive solar storms invade our atmosphere, disrupting global communications.
In fact, I'm actually going to, before I continue, I'm going to stop sharing, then I'm actually going to redo this with headphones in, just in case there's an echo. So, yeah. Okay, you guys can still hear me. That's good. Now let's reshare this. Okay. And here we go.
Once in a decade, massive solar storms invade our atmosphere, disrupting global communications.
John, it's your dad's old ham radio. Go over to the den, huh? Plug it in.
And causing unexplained phenomenon.
W2QYD. This is Frank Sullivan.
Hello? What'd you say your name was?
Frank Sullivan.
Is this some kind of joke?
That will allow John Sullivan to talk to his father.
What do you say we tame this Bronco, huh? You and me. Spirit and guts.
Now, before I do go further, I do want to point out that there are some scenes in this trailer that are not in the movie. And I do basically, they do a good job selling this. This is back when trailers were actually good, where they don't spoil everything like they do in nowadays trailers. So let's continue.
Who's been dead for 30 years.
How could it be?
I don't know. But we gotta be talking up the mother son spot of all time.
Great line.
I've missed you so much.
Well, tell me about yourself.
Tell me about your life.
I'm a cop. You're third generation firefighter. Come on, I thought you were gonna grow out of that cop phase.
What's going on, Satch?
Frank says that he's talking to Johnny on the radio in the future.
Now, hey, little chief, there's somebody I want you to talk to.
Good night, John.
Good night there, Chief.
Oh my God.
Hello? Something's wrong. Something we did changed the past.
Something happened to Mom.
Your mother, what?
No, she was murdered.
We gotta do something. Try to stop this guy. I may not know who he is, but I know where he's gonna be and what he's gonna do before he gets there.
Do I call the police? They're not gonna believe me.
You got his prints.
I want you to hide that wallet somewhere where nobody's going to find it for the next 30 years.
The window seat in the dining room.
It's in! I got it!
You gotta give me something I can believe.
We've got to catch him in the act. And you can make that happen, Dad.
I'm not a cop. I'm a firefighter.
We can do it together. Remember Spirit and Guts?
I love you, son.
I love you too, Dad.
Wow, check that out. What if? So, yes, that was the trailer to Frequency, the movie in 2000. And that's the one that we're going to be discussing in more detail today. So, the movie does begin with the solar flare that you see in the trailer a little bit, coming off of the sun, and radio signals are overlapping, talking about the Northern Lights, the 1969 World Series, and the death of a third nurse in what is known as the Nightingale Murders. Now, this movie is one that really is a tearjerker for some people, myself included. And one of the things that I really liked about it is that the acting is just so well done in this movie. The writing is interesting, and the theories that they give are just, it's like, could it possibly happen if an astronomical event like solar flares or sunspots causing something like aurora borealis in the same time or in the same area 30 years apart happening during the same dates of those times? Could they cause something like that? That is basically what happens in this movie. The aurora borealis in 1969 in October that they show in this movie, there's another one happening the same time in October of 1999. And that's how they explain the possibility that radio signals, because of the aurora borealis, are making this possible. So, yes, the movie starts with the solar flare, the overlapping radio reports, and Frank Sullivan, who's played by Dennis Quaid, is FDNY, and they were responding to a tipped fuel truck and a very dangerous imminent explosion situation. Now, he rescues some of the workers just in the nick of time, and I do like how they cover this situation very specifically. They say the whole place is lit up with gas. The fumes have already filled up the vault where those workers are, or there's workers inside of a subterranean area where it's filling up with gasoline and whatnot, because of the tip truck is filling the place up, and the workers couldn't get out of there. They were locked in a vault, and the only way through the vault was through a manhole cover down the street and whatnot. Now, they said you cannot do any sparks, so it just shows that the precision of these firefighters. He's like, give me a whack, remember, no sparks. That is a great way of keeping with consistency and continuity. So then they rescue the guy, and you see the digital explosion. That's the only real problem with this movie, is some of the digital effects are not as well done, but some of them also do work very well. But you do know when it's digital and when it's not. You know, it really does make a person wonder. It's like, who did these special effects for Frequency? But for the most part, the digital effects are rather well done. They do serve the purpose. So when he's getting out and the fuel finally goes up in the sewer, and the fire goes up through the manhole that he just escapes, it just really looks like CG flame or recorded flame going where they want it to go, you know? So you know it's not natural flame that's coming out of that thing. So then this is, or we get the date, 1969, Queens, New York, October 10th, 1969. And Dennis Quaid is riding a motorcycle without a helmet. It really does sell the date, plus the much of the settings. They really went back they really went out to get as much as the older looking New York as possible. Older vehicles, older everything. They did a really good job with that. Now, yes, if you are an eagle eye for a lot of the motors and whatnot, you will see that there are problems, that there are cars that were from later on instead of 1969. I do believe you see a 70s Oldsmobile in this movie too. Now, there is a factual error or a historical error when he gets home, because he comes home after this fire and he's talking to Gordo and his son, or his little son, Johnny, or as he calls him, Little Chief. And he's a sucker for Elvis, Dennis Quaid is. I'm trying to get the one of my windows to actually work here. There we go. Okay, good. Now it's working. So yes, let's see here. The ham radio that is used in this movie, the radio used in the film is a Heathkit SB301 receiver only, and is in reality incapable of transmitting. That's one of the interesting things but they really do sell that piece of equipment as one that can transmit for tech nerds out there. As for the factual error of this movie, where he's comes in to his wife, kisses his wife, and they start, and he's like, how about listening to the King, huh? And they put on an Elvis album. Now, when Dennis Quaid reaches into a pile of albums to play the King album, one of the albums in that pile is Elvis in Concert, which was not released until 1977, but yet this is 1969. So eagle-eyed viewers will actually catch that if you are, in fact, a fan of Elvis. So also Dennis Quaid, in my opinion, is not that good at singing Elvis. They definitely sell, or in this moment, they show the Elizabeth Mitchell and Dennis Quaid singing or dancing together. It really does set up that these two are madly in love with each other and that they loved each other very much back in 1969. And little Johnny and his buddy, or his friend Gordo, are also seeing them, and then they're like, oh my God. So then that night, Dennis Quaid is trying to help his son ride without training wheels. And you get the motto, spirit and guts. And how now when he rolls him down the street the first time, he lets go and his son crashes, and then he goes to run for his mother, and he's like, come on, Chief, don't quit on me now. And she turns to him. It's not as entertaining as Randy Quaid. Dennis Quaid, honestly, or both of the Quaids, I do not think they're actually related, to be 100% honest. But Randy Quaid, he does a good job with his movies, but I do also like Dennis Quaid as an actor. This is actually the second Dennis Quaid movie that I've done in Mystery Reviews, the first one being Dragonheart. But Dennis Quaid is a great actor. I really do like his acting. And good to see you, Happy Dino. So his mother, or Johnny's mother, turns to Frank. She's like, don't be so hard on him, Frank. He's just a kid. And she then tells him, he just has to know that you're behind him. Because, yeah, I remember when I had to ride bikes, I literally remember way back before I was riding on two wheels. The training wheels that I had, I remember the first bike that I rode on two wheels, it was actually bigger than the bike that I came to ride later on two wheels. And yes, I'm doing well. Almost to 1,000 subs. I just got 49 more to go. So yeah, hope you're also doing well, Happy. And you never mastered the bike. Well, not everybody does. But yeah, one of the things I remember, my grandfather, he was actually up in town when I started getting up, or he's the one that helped me get off the training wheels. My grandfather did for me. And it was a red bike that I started riding that was a little bit big for me, but I still managed to get it done. I still managed to actually ride in the circle, kind of like how they did it in this movie, like we saw in the trailer before people started coming in. And I see that 4 people are in the chat. So make sure to smash that like button, folks, and share the stream out, get other people to come in. And I do also want to thank everybody for the support that they have shown me throughout the few years or a couple of years that I've been doing this. Gosh, it's been 3 years since I started doing videos on my channel. And I'm very thankful to each and every one of you who have subbed to my channel, and the ones that continue to come by and the ones that continue to watch. Thank you Thank you so much for supporting me. Now we're almost to 1K, and believe me, when it gets to 1K, it's going to start getting more interesting. Now, back to the movie. After he has a smoke outside, he goes in he looks up at the Aurora Borealis above his video or his home. And then we hear him talking on the ham radio, WQ2 or W2QYV. And he's talking about how he's picking up signals that he's never heard before. And I love how when they pull out into space and they show the sun and the solar flares, it literally creates a mirrored ethereal Earth. So to sell the effect that there's something phenomenally going on that cannot be explained, where he's talking. Oh, the clues were Dennis Quaid, or not Dennis Quaid. The clues were time travel and Nightingale. And I do believe the bonus hint, episode 44. Let me mute. Okay, the bonus hint was WQ2YV. Now, I do remember that they actually did a TV series for this, but I never got into the series. I just liked the movie. Now, then we go, or while they're doing this, the picking up signals that he's never heard before and whatnot, they show the ethereal Earth, and then they come back down, skipping ahead to October 10th, 1999, exactly 30 years later. So Jim Caviezel now plays Johnny, all grown up, picked up smoking from his now deceased father, and his girlfriend is leaving him, citing that he won't change. John became a cop, Jim Caviezel's character. And I got to say that Jim Caviezel really played this role very well. Hey, Dan Blackroyd, good to see you. His friend probably should have given him or told him about Google instead. Well, back in 99, Yahoo was booming in the stock market. But we'll get to that later on. And we see him after his girlfriend leaves, Samantha, her name is. And he comes in. He's become a cop. He's dropping his badge and his gun on the table. There is a small continuity error that when he drops it, the series was the same, just sex swapped. Oh, interesting. And how you doing, rough girl? It's always a pleasure to see you. And so the continuity error was when he laid his gun or put his gun on the table. It was actually at a angle where when it goes back and shows the gun, it's actually moved straight ahead, or it's actually straightened out. Now, when they show the Aurora Borealis in these scenes, I love how when they show it, you see frequency signals dancing across the Aurora Borealis. It's very interesting to see. And we then get shown older Gordo, his friend from next door, is in his house, and they find the old ham radio that his father used. Now, funny thing about the casting of this movie that I didn't state earlier is Gordo's son, Gordo Jr., is played by, what was his name? I believe he's in Kick-Ass or something. Yeah, let me go here for a second. Pulling up the movie on my online library to check this, because then I can pull up his entire the cast and whatnot. So yes, Gordo Jr. was played by, well, he's not in here. Well, let me check now the other source, Google. Frequency cast movie. Michael Cera. Michael Cera plays Gordy's kid, and he plays, I believe, in movies like Kick-Ass and other movies. So this was his very first movie in his Hollywood life. Access to the multiverse. Now, yeah, Michael Cera. Yeah, he was just a kid when he did Frequency. But yeah, he's Scott Pilgrim, Superbad. Jeez. Let's see if I think this is his actual first movie. Or no, it's not his first movie. But yeah, he's Gordy Jr., and he was only 10 years old at the time, apparently. But yeah, he was in things like La Femme Nikita, the 2000s, the TV series from 2000, Wonderful World of Disney. But yeah, he started working in 1999. Michael Cera did. But yeah, Scott Pilgrim is the one he's known for. Arrested Development too. Nice. So also they find the shotgun that belonged to his or to John's father. It's like, hey, give me that gun. And they set it to the side. Now, they set it up in the parlor, where it was originally set up, but it's slightly different because the house has changed over 30 years. And they hook it up. Also, the establishment of the shotgun. Gordo's Yahoo regrets. He's like, Yahoo jumped another 5 points, so really missed the mark on that. So you now know that his friend Gordo wishes that he had invested in Yahoo. And it's something that is a nice establishing thing here. Now, let me just unplug my laptop. There we go. Can you all still hear me? Okay. Was there any change in the audio? Before I continue on, can you all still hear me? Audio is good. Okay, thank you. And Skirmitar, good to see you. So, yes. When they start picking up the radio, or they start trying to set up the radio, it does crap out. Later, John calls his mother to check in and confirm that he will see her tomorrow, because tomorrow is the day before the anniversary of his father's death. And then you see the news station talking about the Aurora Borealis discussion and how they're theorizing a connection through time dimension, where you can speak through time of when the Aurora Borealis was around and whatnot. And you then see his father, who died, or you see the scrapbook of the news about his father dying 30 years in a fire ago, to the almost 30 years to the day. And he's then talking with somebody on the ham radio. You see it's his father, and it's the same guy, or also from the TV news that he's watching on the TV in 1999. You see 30 years ago at the same time, it's the same guy on the TV, just 30 years younger. So it's a pretty nice parallel that they showed there as well. And he starts talking. He's like, if you're not or you got to be licensed to use the hand radio. Otherwise, unless this is an emergency, you got to get off the band. And so they then start talking to each other. And he's like, he's like, so you excited about the series? He's like, nah, I don't follow baseball much anymore. He's like, what? And so he tells him, I just got sick of all the bullshit. He's like, look, pal, 1,000 years from now, when they're talking in history, they're going to talk about three things: the Constitution, rock and roll, and baseball. And the signal starts bouncing when they start talking about the 69 World Series. And John tells him about a future play from of the first game, game 1 of the Amazing Mets. And Frank in the past accidentally cracks a window to the den when he trips over the dog Elvis. And when his son John walks by the parlor, he doesn't notice that there's now a new crack in the window that goes unnoticed. And it's like, huh, isn't that odd? So that is the very first that's the very first instance that something changes through the time, because of him talking through time with his father, but it's unbeknownst to him at the time. So now we get to the singing of Take Me Out to the Ball Game, where his father is singing his son to sleep. And you also hear him singing it, or you also hear Jim Caviezel singing it to himself and humming it out as he falls asleep. Now, in 1969, we then see the NYPD and the FDNY watching the game in Picnic with each other, and we also are introduced to the character of Satch, played by the actor Andre Braugher. Now, Andre Braugher is an actor that I have seen in movies recently, that I recently watched, which was the Rise of the Silver Surfer Fantastic Four movie. Now, I actually like that movie. A lot of people are saying, oh my God, those movies sucked. And yes, Galactus is a big freaking storm, but you also do see Galactus's head in that movie, but that's a discussion for another time. In fact, I might actually make it a mystery review later on. Or just discuss it with somebody if anybody wants to come up on guest choice reviews for the other review discussions that I have. It'd be a nice discussion to talk about. But yes, Andre Braugher plays Satch, and he's NYPD. Now, going back to the talking points, we then jump to the future after they're watching the game, and John is partnered with Satch, and you see that Satch has gotten 30 years older and whatnot, and they're responding to a skeleton that just got found. So John is now going and talking to a family who is close to the crime scene, and he's talking to the Shepherds, and he sees the picture of their son Jack, and their son Jack died a while back, not explained when, and you hear that, or you find out that this is important later on. So then when he gets back out to Satch writes this off. He's like, this is just a history lesson. We'll get the DNA back when we can. And the camera zooms in on the bones of this victim, and it seems that some are missing. So future Jules and John, when John goes to see his mother, Jules, played by Elizabeth Mitchell, she still works at the hospital, and they are talking or reminiscing about Frank and how it will be 2 years or 30 years to the day of his death. And then you see him playing catch with his son, or John, young John, playing catch with his father in a memory where she is narrating it. And it's the night just before, just like it is 30 years exactly ago, of the fire. So then John talks to his past father again, and Frank's asking him, he's like, how'd you do it? How'd you call the game? Or how did you call the first game? He's like, it's pretty easy. That game was 30 years ago, pal. He's like, oh, right, yeah, 30 years ago. And then he's like, I bet you can tell me what happens in game 2. So he tells him Al Weiss, RBI single, top of the ninth, the Mets ground out and win the game. And then he hears his son, little Johnny, or then John hears his smaller self from 69 asking to have his father sing him the baseball song. And he tells him, he's like, I'll be right there, little chief. Just give me a little while. And this is where things start to become odd. He's like, you call your son little chief? What'd you say your name? Or wait, what'd you say your name was? Frank Sullivan. Gordo was, and he thinks it's Gordo. He thinks his friend is punking him. And one of the things, I love the acting in this scene, the confusion, the fear, the utter chaos of this scene. He's like, so wait, what did you say this, or your call letters or your call sign or whatever it is, WQ2YV. And he looks at the same register on his radio 30 years in the future. And he's like, now you listen to me. My name is John Francis Sullivan. I was born yada yada, and my father was Francis Patrick Sullivan. He's like, bullshit. And it's starting to scare him. It's starting to scare Dennis Quaid, Frank. And he's like, bullshit. What are you talking about? And he's like, or because of this, he kind of puts a cigarette down, and he misses the ashtray, and it starts igniting his pack of cigarettes. And so he uses the paper and he pushes it down. And then you see the burn on the desk, or you see the charred part on the desk. And he's like, what's going on? Can you hear me? He's like, and the desperation in Jim Caviezel's voice, he's like, oh my God, you burnt the desk. I can see it. And well, obviously now Frank's is freaking out. And so he's running to his window. He's like, and he starts being a very protective father or man in the house. He's like, hey, I don't know who you are. I don't know why you're doing this, but you stay the hell away from me and my family. He's like, but it's me, or it's Little Chief. Hey, you stay away from my son, or I'm going to hunt you down until the day I die. But you already died. He's like, what are you talking about? The Buxton fire 30 years ago, or October 12th, 1969. And then he's so desperate, and he's like, he has no idea how it's possible that he's talking to his father. And he's like, if you would have just gone the other way, if you go against your gut this one time, or just go the other way. And then the signal just bounces out. And he's like, are you hearing me? Can you hear me? Shit. And he starts freaking out. Jim Caviezel's acting in that one scene is award worthy. I'm telling you, because imagine being able to talk to a father that you died 30 years ago and you were just a kid. Imagine having the one chance to save his life. And Jim Caviezel handles that handles that scene extremely well. And so does Dennis Quaid, for that matter. He doesn't know what to believe. He's like just stunned silence. And it's like, what is this? And so then Jim Caviezel's outside while Gordo comes. He's like, Gordo, I just talked to my dad. And Gordo doesn't know how to handle it. He's like, come on, or go inside, man. I'll talk to you in a minute, or I'll be over in a minute. We could talk. He's like, I got to warn him about the Buxton fire. It's tomorrow. And Gordo's thinking that he's having PTSD or something. And it's in the rain, and he's out there in his bare feet too. And it's like, holy shit, man. So then we get to tomorrow in 1969. Hold on one second. My feet are a bit cold. There we go. Wrap them up in my pants. So we get to the Buxton fire and how Frank is watching the game at the firehouse, and he sees that the game goes the way his son called it. He sees that Al Weiss in the bottom of the ninth, or the top of the ninth, hits an RBI single, and then they just get the call of an abandoned warehouse fire, and Frank gets there. He sees the sign, Buxton building, and then that there's a kid in the building. Now, in the future, John, Gordo, and Satch are talking or are toasting 30 years to the day, and I love how the scene jumps back and forth between past and present. Frank finds the girl, and he gets separated from the rest of the firefighters. Now, as he's getting ready to go the way that looks safe, where it's just all smoky, he remembers what the person on the other side of the radio told him. If you had just gone the other way, you would have made it. So he goes against his gut, and he goes the way where the fire is. Now, John, as the second he makes this decision, Kamen Rider, good to see you. I love how the moment he makes this decision in 1969, you see the different memories that John starts remembering. He starts remembering a different past of where his father is alive and how he is growing up to be or to see his father in different time periods. When he just became a cop, his father is with him toasting at a bar and whatnot. It's all, and this all starts flashing in Jim Caviezel's head, in John's head, in the present. And as Dennis Quaid's character, Frank, is sliding down with the girl that he just saved, and he gets out of there. And just as, or in the parallel of him falling after he busts out of an area in the building where there was a slide, you see Jim Caviezel drop his bourbon glass. And as it shatters and Frank lands in the river with the girl. And as they get out of the river by the fire, or by the people in the fireboat, he gets out and he just starts screaming, he's like, "Little Chief," and he's just happy that he's alive. And okay, Rough Girl, thank you for stopping in. Hope you get better, or hope you find some sleep. And John, he's like, "Satch, my dad didn't die in a fire." And he's like, "Fire? What are you talking about, John? Your dad died 10 years ago from cancer." Him and Gordo do not, or because they're not directly involved in what's going on, they do not remember that, or they don't see the different memories because they're not directly involved. Now, this is a small inconsistency bit. It's only Jim Caviezel who can remember the two different pasts that he lived. Has the new memories, but he also remembers the past that happened for him. So time has not yet fused to cement the old memories. For him, he remembers both what it's like for his father to live and what it was like for his father to die. And so he finds out that, his father died 10 years ago instead. And it's because of the cigarettes that he smoked. He got lung cancer. And when his son, or when he screams, or his father's screaming out, "Little Chief," in the son, or in the past, which is his son's nickname. So then we get to later on where he's trying to contact his son on the radio. And he's like, "John, you there? John." And he's like, and "Little Chief, are you there?" And he's not there, or obviously he's not there yet. "Morning, protein shake. Hope you're going well." "I'm doing good. Price is right. Hope you're doing well, man." So then little Johnny from 1969, he's like, "I'm right here, Daddy." And so he decides that now that he's alive, he's going to help his son tame that Bronco, the bike. And he tells him, "I'm not going to let go until you are ready." And then he helps little Johnny ride the bike. And this is a new memory that he's also getting in the past. So then John gets back in the future to his house, and he sees "I'm still here," CHIE, and you see the E starting to form. I'm talking in frequency today. And good morning, Riot Kitty. Good to see you. Morning, Orange. And I see you got the premium plan for StreamYards. It's very nice. I got the, not the premium, but the secondary. I upgraded early. I was planning on upgrading for when I hit 1,000, but I decided to upgrade early because why not, So, yes, I'm also doing frequency today. Price is Right. With Jim Caviezel and Dennis Quaid. So then he gets back to, or he writes, and he sees new photos when John comes home, and he then sees the "I'm still here, Chief." So then he starts talking through the radio, and he's like, John Sullivan. And he's like, "It's me." And he's like, "You're the voice of an angel, John. You reached right out of heaven, and you pulled my butt right out of that fire." And this scene where they are talking, where they're conversing, their acting is so well done. You literally feel that these two are somebody that have not talked, or that what they're doing, talking 30 years apart to each other through time, is genuine. You feel that these two people everybody's like, what would you say to your past self and this and that? These two have that opportunity. Well, he has an opportunity to talk to his father of 30 years ago, of which he died 30 years ago, but now is alive. And he continues to talk to him. He's like, how is this possible? We must be talking off the mother spot, or the mother-son spot of all time. And it really is great. What movie are you reviewing, Kamen Rider? It is Frequency. The movie is called Frequency. And so he's like, so tell me about yourself. Pay it forward. No, it's not pay it forward. It's Frequency. Gotcha. I've only seen 2. Oh, yeah. So that's what you're doing. I've only seen 2 Jim Caviezel's movies, The Passion of the Christ, for obvious reasons, but also pay it forward. Yeah. And so he's like, tell me about yourself. What? So are you married? He's like, no. Let me guess. You're too busy playing ball. No, I never got, or I stopped playing ball. He's like, what happened? I blew my arm out in senior year. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, John. And this scene brought tears to my eyes, folks. Literally, I felt the emotional joy of a father and son being able to converse through time. And I'm actually getting a little choked up about it right now. It just works so well. And they continue talking throughout the hours. And he tells him, and he warns him about the smoking killing him 10 years short of where his son is now in 1999. And he's like, now you sound like your mother. Your grandfather smoked 2 packs a day and he's still kicking. And he's like, not you. It's going to catch up to you. And he also tells him, you gotta, and he tells him about how he's remembering both pasts. And he tells him, I'm sorry, John. And he's like, you gotta think about that because I cannot lose you again. Not like that. Because in the beginning of this movie, John is broken. He's broken. After 20 minutes, I figured out that I did not see in this movie. It's okay, Skirmitar. This movie is actually a very good movie. I recommend everybody watch this movie because of how good it is. And so he also tells him about how he's a cop. And he's like, I went the other way. I became a cop. And he's like, oh, my God, you have Satch to thank for that. And so after they call, I love how they don't want to, or after they are getting ready to call it for the night. And he's like, I really don't want to stop doing this right now. I don't want to leave the radio. And he's like, we're both tired. We do need to get some sleep and we will talk again. We will talk again. And they tell each other, I love you, son. I love you too, Dad. So then he calls his mother, or John calls his mother, but you only get the answering machine. And then Frank visits his wife in the past at the hospital. And while they're talking, she ends up saving a patient from a fatal mixture that would have killed the person if they had hooked him up. Now, what you don't know is that this person plays or is very important. His name is Jack Shepard. Well, you notice that he was the cop that was in the future in those that had died long ago when John was talking to the Shepard family. Now, new memories, or after this happens and midnight swings around, new memories start to plague John. Funeral, where all of his family and friends and his young friend Gordo is looking at him, and he's holding his mother's or one of his mother's necklaces, and you see a funeral that it's for his mother. His father's still alive, but now it's his mother who's dead. Now, this may have some viewers confused because during the new scenes, the new memories that his Jim Caviezel John had, when Frank went down the slide, you saw that his mother was still alive when he was older and whatnot. However, something changed again, because after that visit at the hospital, something changed to where now she's dead. And now, however, we learn that smaller choices affect time in a very different way. The choices made by Frank were impulsive, so him visiting Jules somehow changed the past even further, calling his mother, which leads to John calling his mother after he wakes up, and he's dialing the same number, and it's now to a place called Noah's Deli. And he doesn't understand what's going on. So then he visits his girlfriend, who doesn't recognize him anymore. Which that is a plot hole, because something changed in the past to affect him not knowing his girlfriend. So I'm guessing his mother introduced him to his girlfriend. So now that his mother died back in 1969, he never met Sam. Now, remember, John can remember both pasts. However, he doesn't remember not knowing Sam or Samantha. So that's my theory, because it's never explained. So that is a small objective plot hole. So the skeleton, when John gets to his work, Satch is slightly different. He's pissed off at John for some reason, and they find out that the skeleton that was found confirms more women died in the Nightingale murders. And he's like, who would have thought that we would have dug up a Nightingale? This makes 10. And John's like, 10? No, I remember this case. It was 3. And Satch, because he's affected by the time changes, he's like, what are you talking? John, you know this case better than anyone. You wouldn't, or you've looked at these things. It is a very trippy movie. It will confuse some people upon first viewing, but the more you watch it, the more it will make sense. Right. So he then goes through the different files of the different victims of the Nightingale, and he sees Julia Sullivan, and he realizes, oh my God, something happened. My mother is now a victim of the Nightingale Killer. So he goes home immediately and he starts talking to his father. Now, get out of there. So now this part does show a realistic error. If he was a homicide detective working on the Nightingale case and his mother was a victim, he would not be allowed to touch this case. He wouldn't be allowed to access the files, nothing, because it's a conflict of interest. However, this is a movie, so they allow different things, or rules are different. So he gets home and he's like, Dad, we need to talk. Are you there? And he's like, and you hear them talking with, now there's somebody who pointed out a mistake one time that you got to push down the transmitter bar when you're talking through a ham radio. But it's explained that because of the Aurora Borealis and this very weird phenomenon, you don't necessarily have to do it. Now, Frank is smoking a cigarette and he hears his son's voice, and so he puts out the cigarette before he goes over to the radio, as if his son will know that somehow he'd been smoking it. But it's a nice little touch there. And so he tells him, he's like, something happened to Mom. And he's like, something happened to your mother? What happened to your mother? And he's like, she died. Your mom just died? No, not just for me, or not just now for me, but or a long time ago for me. It was October 22nd, 1969. And he's like, that's now, Johnny. That's next week. What happened? And he tells him there was a case, a serial. They never caught him. They called him the Nightingale, and he's like, the Nightingale, we've been watching that on the news. I've been worried about your mom because she's a nurse and whatnot. And he tells him, and he starts freaking out. Frank does, because he's now learning that his wife's about to die next week. And he's like, we did something. We changed the past. It was 3. He only killed 3 women. Now now it's 10. So what did you do last night, Dad? What did you do? He's not blaming his father, but he wants to know what his father may have done that has changed the past. And he's like, I tucked you into your bed. I took you over to Gordo's, tucked you in, and then I visited your mother. And that is what triggered it. He's like, oh my God, that's right. Mom was never supposed to be at the hospital. Something happened at the hospital because the night that you didn't come back from the fire, Butch came over and took her home. And because you didn't come home, and he's like, well, what happened? And so they start formulating a plan. It's like, this is something we have to do. We screwed this up. We have a responsibility to make it right. And the act, folks, I cannot stress how great the acting between Jim Caviezel and Dennis Quaid is in these scenes. They work so well. Where he's like, I don't know what to do. This is something that we have to do. Now, what if the ham stops working? What if we can't talk to each other? Then you get Ma the hell out. But we have got to stop these other women from being killed. The next one is Sissy Clark. She dies tomorrow. So he manages to save Sissy Clark. And while he does so, John is at work in the future. And he's like, she's not here, Sissy Clark. And Satch is like, who? And you then realize that, well, he managed to save him. Now, also during the scene of where Dennis Quaid goes to save Sissy Clark to make sure that she's safe and whatnot, you do see a glimpse of the guy that got saved by Jules Sullivan, the guy that almost had the fatal mixture at the hospital. And he's watching the women, as Dennis Quaid was. Well, then we see, or let me check the talking points. So then we get back to, he's like, Sissy Clark is safe, John. He's like, well, or did you see the guy? And he's like, no, I just couldn't leave her. So I made sure she got home all right. He's like, that's all right. We could still catch him in the next act with the next woman. So then, because Frank knows about his mother, or about John's mother dying next week because of the Nightingale Killer still out there, he decides to give his son in the future a small present. He allows Jules to talk to her son in the future, although she does not know it is her son, John. She just knows that it's a cop named John. And also you see little Johnny say goodnight to him, and he's like, you have a good night, little chief. And then he's like, or Gordo's there too, and he wants to talk on the radio. This scene right here is one of the coolest little scenes. Jim Caviezel John decides to pay or let Gordo in on a little secret. Now, remember when I said that Gordo in the future or in the present has regrets of not putting stock in Yahoo? Well, he's talking to Gordo, and he's like, my name is Santa Claus, and I'm going to give you a present. Well, then I better tell you my address. You don't need to worry about that. This is something that you need to remember for a long time. Yahoo. And he's like, what's that? It's a magic word like abracadabra. So try it. Give it a whirl. Yahoo. That's right. Now go upstairs and write it down, buddy. Trust me, you'll know what to do. And he's like, good night, Santa Claus. Because he says his name's Santa Claus. And he's like, okay, John, now we're back. And he they start going over the next victim, where she left, or the next victim was Sissy Clark. Sorry, the first victim was somebody else. The next victim is Sissy Clark. And you see the past and present gets cut together. And as Frank is starting to protect the next victim, they also identified the first victim. Her name was Mary Finelli. And they're interrogating a person who they thought might be the killer in the future. And I love how while they're going through this, John is talking with this guy, and you see the cut between the fight between Frank and Jack Shepherd. Now Jack Shepherd beats him up in the bathroom, knocks him down. He's getting ready to strangle him and kill him, but instead he just leaves him or knocked out, and he takes his ID because two other people came in. He's like, he's on a bad trip right now, and they were wondering what's going on, and he's like, yeah, man, well, 69, drugs, you know. And so he's unconscious. Now, in the future, John is about to go postal on this suspect that they have, and he starts taking his badge off. He puts his badge down, and he takes the clip out of his gun, ejects one bullet, and Satch is like, okay, we got to stop this. And he's like, John, second. He's not the guy, John. He's like, he knew 3 of the victims and whatnot. He's like, if he known something, he would have given it up by now. So they leave it alone in the future. Now, in the past, Dennis Quaid wakes up after being knocked out. Now, there's a small continuity error. When Jack Shepherd knocks him out and tosses his wallet, well, now Jack Shepherd wakes up and his wallet's right next to his face. He gets up and he goes up to look for Sissy Clark. There's this woman outside suspiciously looking at him. He's like, I don't trust this shit. Well, now Frank breaks in and he hears the record is skipping. He sees that Sissy Clark didn't live. And he's like, he's broken up about it. And we find out that, or we see how busted up that Frank is about it. And he's like, he's got my driver's license. He's like, what? He has my ID, Johnny. He knows where we live. He's like, he took your wallet? No, he took my ID and he ditched the wallet. He's like, he touched your wallet? We got him, Dad. What are you talking about? Take your wallet out of your bag. Just trust me. We have his prints. You have his prints. You got to get me that wallet. How the hell am I supposed to do that? I want you to take it out by the corners, wrap it up, and his father then puts it together. He's like, okay, I see where you're going, Chief. Let's do this. Now we got to hide it in a place where nobody will think to look for it for 30 years. And he's like, okay, there's a floorboard in one of the storage areas. There's a loose board at the bottom. And they hide the wallet there like we see in the trailer. And he pulls out the wallet. And he's like, okay, we're in business. Now leave it there and don't touch it. And so he gets the wallet. It's all wrapped up in the plastic bag. You see that it's covered in dust. And he's like, we're in business now. Leave it to me. I'll find out who it is. So when he does go to look for it, we find out that the prints belong to a cop, Jack Shepherd. Well, John in the future knows that Jack Shepherd originally died. He's like, son of a bitch. Something happened back then. Jack Shepherd is still alive, and he killed again and again and again. So he goes to visit the Shepherds again, the parents to Jack. Well, it's now just Mr. Shepherd. His wife isn't there. He's like, may I ask how she died? She was murdered, detective. And it's like, oh shit. Don't tell me she was a Nightingale, because the Nightingale Killer raped and murdered his victims. So we then see that John confronts Jack in the present, and Jack he handles it perfectly. Jack Shepherd in the future or in the present. And he's like, we got a case from back in your heyday, the Nightingale Killer. He's like, no kidding. He's like, yeah, and who would have thought that catching a body or a skeleton and hitting a dental 30 years later? We now know that she's the first victim and that she knew him. And then he starts talking to him. He's like, and that wouldn't cover up how many skeletons start coming out of the closet after a while. Hey, Jack, your mother was a night, or you changed your MO. If they would have realized that your mother was a Nightingale, they would have looked at the family. They would have looked at you. He's like, and what are you looking at? Stealing your life away. You're going down 30 years ago, pal. You just don't know it yet. And so that's the last we see of Jack in the present for now. Now we get cut back to Frank talking to John on the radio again. And he's like, a cop, what are we supposed to do about that? Now they're not going to, or how are they going to believe me now? You go to the FBI, you tell them about the how this killer always took something from his victims. They check his place. But during this time, Satch has showed up at the house and he wants to talk with Frank in the past. And Satch then arrests Frank for the potential murder of Sissy Clark because they found his ID under her body. Now, while Frank tries to tell John about it through the past or through the ham gets knocked down and damaged, and while Frank is being arrested, Frank tries telling Satch the truth, and he tries to prove it with the World Series of 1969. He's like, what inning are we in? Well, what if I told you that he's going to come up the bat, in the fifth inning, and he's going to get hit in the foot, and it's going to leave a shoe polish mark on the ball. Now, and then he describes another play, and he's like, now you go watch the game, if this doesn't happen, then I'm a liar. He's like, watch the game. Yes, watch the game. Watch the game. John, they're about to nail you, or Frank, they're about to nail you for Sissy Clark's murder. And then they're going to tie this case to the other murders. Do you understand what that means? Now, Satch is Frank's friend, but he also has to be a cop. He can't he can't just go off on faith on this. That's not how it works. Now, also in the future, we see that the future has changed, and we see John looking at a newspaper clipping that shows Frank as the suspect in the Nightingale murders, and that the sunstorms are cooling in the past. So now they're running out of time. So while this is happening and Satch goes to talk to Frank's wife, Satch goes to talk to Frank's wife, Shepard shows up in the past, and he's like, so he tells him, sit down. And he's like, I said, sit down. And so he's asked him, how'd you know? And well, then the detective who is handling the case with Satch goes in. He's like, what are you doing talking to my caller? And you know what? And whatnot. He's like, I didn't mean to step on your toes, but he's also being a suspect, and we have some question for you. And now during this time, Satch is telling Jules about how Frank is talking to his son in the future and how crazy it sounds. And also during this time, Frank is setting up a trap for Shepard with coffee, electricity, and a wire from the AC that's handling, or from the air conditioning unit from way back when. Pulls the cord, dumps the coffee, wraps the cord around the handle to the door, which is a nice brass conductor. So when Jack goes in one more time, he just tosses the wire, hits the coffee, shocks the shit out of Shepard. Well, now he knows, or so Jack acts quickly, grabs Shepard's wallet, finds out where he lives, and then he takes a aerosol can and hits the sprays the fire alarm, or sprays a fire. Sorry, folks. Sprinkler. I had to think about the word. I lost the word for a second there. I keep doing that for some weird reason. My mind's going. And causes a fire, and he escapes. Now, during this time, Satch hears that there is a shoe polish play on the TV. And it looks like my internet's starting to crap out. Can you all hear me? Well, morning, Jacob. How's the okay? So we got good audio still, or my internet's starting to behave again. So now Satch sees that there's a shoe polish play, and he then decides to watch the rest of the game. Jules is beside herself because Satch told her, we're going to possibly tie him to the Nightingale murders now, and I'm going to have to step away from this case. But then while he's watching the game, he's realizing that Frank's right, and then he looks at Jules and he's like, hey, yeah. And she doesn't know what the hell's going on. She thinks that he just completely went nuts. So I love how it's like, oh my God. Now, the next scene shows Frank at Shepard's house, and he's looking for the evidence, but Jack comes home and he knows that somebody's there, so he decides to lock the doors and then unlocks the doors, and he finds that Shepard, or that Frank finds the evidence of the jewelry there. Well, Shepard tries shooting at him, and he goes through the window, and he chases after Frank, and Frank drops the evidence of the jewelry that he takes from each murder. And there's a shot where they go down by the docks. Now, remember, this is in 1969. Well, the cameraman makes a very quick mistake, but shifts the camera to correct it, where it's you see the Twin Towers and you see the World Trade Center, and then he quickly moves over to get them out of this, or you only see one tower. Now, there's a reason why that is a mistake. Construction just began on the towers in 1969. So it's like, oh shit, you know? So yeah, how you doing, Jacob? Good to see you. So when Frank pulls him down into the water by the docks and smacks him over the head, he thinks that he's killed Jack. And Satch and his partner had just busted into Shepard's place, and they find the evidence that Frank was also going to have. And then they find Frank at the docks because they followed the gunshots and whatnot. And Frank is then sent home. He's no longer a suspect. And he puts Johnny to bed, and he says to Jules comes down and she's like, here's your coffee and here's your cigarettes. He's like, thank you, honey. And then he crushes the cigarettes. He's like, no longer smoke. Or he finally quits the smoking. He cold turkeys it. And remember, he has to fix the ham radio. Now, John in the future is beside himself. He's kind of freaking out, remember. So I love how when he starts working on the radio in the past, it then shows the one in the future self-repair itself, which is a digital shot, and you actually see the mystical blue energy around it a little bit, a nice little dark shade of blue aura around the parts that are fixing and whatnot. And it's a nice, interesting shot. So we then get or hear him talking to him, and John gets home, and when they talk to each other, he's like, we got him, John. He's like, what do you mean? It's over. And he tells him, he's like, well, mom's not here. Why don't I remember her being okay? And he's like, but John, I killed him. Now, at this moment, Jack Shepherd, in both past and present, attacks hold on. A friend of mine has a very bad habit of calling me at noon on Tuesdays. He should get the hint. But anyway, yes, Jack attacks Frank in 69 and John in 99. And he says, now I'm going to steal your life away. And during this fight, in the future, and in the past, Jack, how you doing, Ruben? Jack actually cuffs Dennis to the door to the parlor, and then he goes after Jules. And during the commotion, Little John wakes up to see Jack on his mother, or over his mother, while he's about to violate her. And then you see him come down, or you see during this moment, or during the fight, you see how past and present meet again, because Jules scratches or claws Jack's face. And in the future, you now see Jack's face shift with 3 scars appearing on his face. You see the scars actually appear there. And then, because he and John are fighting over a gun in the future, while she claws his face. Now she comes down, or he comes down with Little Johnny, while Frank has the shotgun and holding it to or pointing it at Jack, and he tells him, he's like, put the gun down or I'll snap your son's neck. Well, in the future, Jack gets the upper hand and puts the gun to John's head in the future, and he says, time to die, Sullivan. And young Jack hears that on the radio, and that's when Jules jumps on Jack in the past, causing him to drop Johnny, and you hear Jack yell to Johnny, run, run, run. And you also hear, or this causes a future Jack to look over at the radio. Well, past Jack now runs at Frank to try to stop him from re-grabbing the shotgun, because he put it down, and he puts his hand, or just as he reaches out, the shotgun comes up and blows his hand off. And so then he runs out of the house. Now, I'm sorry, if you just got your hand blown off, you're not running away. I'm sorry, that's just odd that he would be able to run away without a hand. He wouldn't be screaming in pain or anything. That is a weird error, but that's just how it is. So in the future, the Jack Shepherd that's attacking John is looking at his hand withering away. And he doesn't understand what the hell's going on. He's like, what the fuck? And then you hear a shotgun, and he looks off screen, and you hear a shotgun, and then boom, he gets blasted back. Well, We then see that it's an older Dennis Quaid. And during the scene where his hand is withering, you also see the entire house shift in its setting. You see the furniture starts changing and everything starts changing. And then you see that Dennis Quaid is still there. He helps his son, and then he says, "I'm still here, Chief." And it's a great little moment, man. I mean, and right after this, they show the Aurora Borealis fading. And then we get to this last nice little climactic happy ending where baseball between FDNY and NYPD, Gordo has a new Benz where Frank hits a foul ball and he's like, "Not the Benz!" And he goes there and it hits the front light. And he's like, "Very funny, guys." And they're all laughing. It's nice. And then you see the license plate and it says Yahoo 1 on it. Or 1 Yahoo, one of those two. And you see that Gordo learned a lesson to invest in Yahoo. It was a nice little trick. And you also see that that John is back with Samantha. The past is reaffirmed because apparently Jules is the one that introduces them. And now also John has a kid with Samantha, so his son is there too, because there's a kid that you didn't recognize that wasn't in the movie before then. And then they roll credits, and you see the past, or you see Frank in the past taking his son out for a bike or for a motorcycle ride, and you see the memories that cemented in because now everything is back to the way it was supposed to be with a happier alternative. And then we roll credits. While this movie does have its flaws, digital flaws, plus some continuity errors and some factual errors, it really does tell a great story. And I really do appreciate this movie. It really is a movie that a person can truly enjoy watching. It's a great thriller, mystery, action, but it's a time travel movie that doesn't really involve time travel. And that is one of the coolest things about it. It's a very unique story. You're able to change the past without actually traveling to the past to change that past. You're communicating with the past, though. So that is one of the coolest things and most unique things about Frequency is that about the story, and it is well written for the most part. The acting with Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel is some of the best acting you will ever see, because with an unprecedented event like being able to talk to your past selves, they really do sell the authenticity of that moment, of those moments where the desperation of trying to convince his father that it is him 30 years in the future, that he's trying to save his father's life. All of that is so well done. Jim Caviezel is one of the greatest actors of that time. And still now. I mean, I absolutely loved him in the series Person of Interest, where he plays the main character. And Dennis Quaid is also a great actor who really knows how to sell an emotional performance. This movie just really shows it very well. So even with the flaws, objectively speaking, hold on one second. Right, Katie's comment just came up. That reminds me of a movie. It's about a young woman discovering a phone that allows her to call the past from the exact same home she lives in. That's interesting. But yes, objectively speaking, this movie is about a 8 to an 8.5 because of some of the dated digital effects. However, and small continuity errors here and there and factual errors and whatnot. But for the most part, this movie does deserve a high score to around an 8.5 at the top with objectively. Subjectively, I absolutely love Frequency. It's a 10 out of 10. It's a movie that is well enjoyable to watch. It's an exciting concept that honestly I do not think has been done before or since. I mean, yeah, they did the Frequency show, but it's like I really had no interest in it because the movie was just so good. So them turning it into a series just seems to cheapen the movie, you know? Would you like to meet yourself from another universe? I mean, me personally, maybe, sure. I mean, if I could talk to my past self and not have to do 3 words like those stupid social media pictures where it's like, if you could talk to your younger self with only 3 words, it's like, why limit it to just 3 words, you know? If I could talk to my past self, I would. And I'd let them know, here's a couple things not to do, you know? And here's a couple things that you should do. But yeah. Anywho, moviegoer, this movie does have, or it stretches to 2 hours. But for the most part, there's things that, or this movie is perfectly paced. I'll actually say that it's paced very well because you do get the sense that they have to cut a couple things out because otherwise it would drag a little too long. But moviegoer, this movie is about a 9 to a 10. There are parts in it that it's like, all right, let's get to, or back to the meat of it. But for the most part, the filler doesn't hamper it down too much. So I will put it at about 9.5 to a 10. Anyway, folks, that is going to be the end of this mystery review. The hints for next week's mystery review are Keanu Reeves and guns. Now, think about that because there are a lot of movies with Keanu Reeves and guns. So you're not going to guess it immediately right off. Do not put it in the comment section, please. And hit me up. I'm still doing the guest choice reviews. If anybody wants to discuss a movie, let me know on Twitter. If you want to discuss a movie where you get to choose the date, the time, and the movie to discuss, and we put it on my channel so that we can, or it's a fun little time. I'll draw up some talking points about the movie, ask the person what they liked about it and whatnot. That's what the guest choice reviews are. And I'm thinking about doing an introduction video for them. It could be good. I like the Snowpiercer series much more than the movie. Interesting. So, yeah, if you guys want to be a part of guest choice reviews, let me know. Even folks that have come on before, you can come on as a guest again if you want. And, yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. Next week is going to be, or after the poll on my on Twitter right now, I have a poll for the times for my mystery reviews. Should I do it at 10:30 or 9:30 or 8:30 in the morning? Make sure that you vote on that because it lets me know what you guys are more comfortable with. 10:30 does seem to have more of a more following because 9:30 I barely have any people on. So 10:30 does seem to have a better time for when people do come on. So I might actually switch it to 10:30. And what else is going on? Well, also remember to help get my channel up to 1,000 subs. Make sure that you share my content out because I'll do the giveaway if I reach, or the giveaway will happen if I don't get to 1,000 subs, but it will only happen when I get to 1,000 subs. But if I do get it before June, the beard goes orange, the hair goes orange, even the eyebrows will go orange, and it's going to be a nice little celebration stream where you guys can clip the stream. You guys can do all sorts of stuff with it, turn it into memes. It's going to be a nice little roasting orange celebration. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Riot Kitty, Skirmitar, Cayman Rider, Ruben, Price is Right, Jacob Ironside, Riot Kitty, Riot Kitty. And Rough Girl, it's always a pleasure to see you. Dan Blackroyd, Happy Dino. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to help me get to 1,000 before June so we can have that celebration stream. And remember the hints for next week, Keanu Reeves and guns. And this has been Orange Hat Reviews, folks. Always remember, stay humble.